So I'll introduce you while you get that set up. So hello, everyone, and I'll introduce myself. I'm Sarah Shepard. I'm the Employer Relationship Manager at Mercy College. And my goal is to put students in front of employers who are hiring to help you learn about the opportunities that are out there and hopefully seize them. So today we have David Brooke here to talk to us about the opportunities at Elevate Education. So take it away, David.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm super excited to share sort of what Elevate does with all of you. Hopefully now you can see my screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yay, or speak to me. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. Normally what I say kind of at the start of these sessions is, save questions to the end, put it in the chat box, blah, 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 blah. We can still do that, but obviously it's a slightly smaller group today, which is in many ways quite nice. So I think, if anybody does have any questions, a couple of points that I might ask you some stuff as well, feel free to sort of keep yourself muted if maybe you're not speaking, but if you want to sort of shout out and say something or ask a question, yeah, please feel free. Let's make it interactive. But I'm super excited to share this with you. So, before we kind of get any further, just real quick, I do just want to make sure that we have all your details so that I can send you information afterwards. So let me just send you a link to a very, very quick survey. If I can figure out how to do this. Here we go. So if you want to just very quickly go into here. I probably should have done this before we started, I'm sorry. It's just a couple of very quick questions, just so we have some details from you. So I'll give you just 30 seconds to do that real quick. Sarah, maybe we should do a duet while we wait.
What should we do? Which song?
Well, we were saying it's nice weather outside, right? So, summer.
Wait, whenever you do something really funny, your internet cuts out.
They're not really funny. Maybe it's saving me.
Okay, cool. Oh, there's better.
Yeah, let me know if my speaker goes a little funny. Okay, cool. Have we filled out the survey?
We all good? You could put like a thumbs up. Okay, great.
Yeah, nice one.
Camila
cool.
and Soars, I hope you were able to fill it out as well.
I'll put a reminder at the end for if anyone might come in. Cool. So first thing I would love to sort of tell you about is what is Elevate? Who are we? So we were founded in 2001 in Australia. We're now in multiple different countries. So we're in England, we're in South Africa, we're in Singapore. We are currently sort of expanding across the States, which is really exciting. And when we were founded, the idea and the focus was, why do the top students achieve the top results? What is it that they do that seems to work better than maybe students who aren't performing at that level? And at this point, lots of people had been asked about this, right? Parents have their own idea, teachers have their own idea, students certainly have their own idea. But what we wanted to do is actually put together a load of research sort of for the first time to really bring all these points together and get sort of one sort of single reference point of what these students are doing differently. So what we did is we did a year's worth of research. In the first 6 months of that, we took 1,800 students from across the gender divide, the socioeconomic divide, different school types, a public, private, Catholic. And we basically did 6 months of quantitative research with them. So we asked them yes or no questions, things like, did you study, yes or no? How many hours did you study for? Did you take any notes? Did you set any goals? All that kind of stuff. And so from there, we were able to get a bit of an idea as to what these students were doing, but what we couldn't really see is how they were operating within maybe the categories that we could see that they were maybe sort of doing things in. So we did second 6 months of research. We took 400 students that were all performing within the top 10 percentile, and we conducted qualitative research with them. So essentially we sat these people down and we asked them questions, open-ended questions, sort of for, up to about 4 hours in some cases, right? So how did you sit while you studied? What did you take notes on? How did you know to take notes on that thing? How did you format those notes? Did you use colors and pictures? If so, why? All of that jazz. And then we ended up having this result. right? These 13 key study skills. So basically any of the workshops that we do to any of the students, any sort of tips or any advice we give in those will always tie back to one or more of these categories. And I won't go through every single one of them right now because it is a lot of information. What I would like to do is kind of reference one specific part of it. I'm actually going to go back to a study that was done at the University of Pennsylvania in 2006. It was really interesting. It's done by a man named Martin Seligman. And what they wanted to understand was why, or sort of what factors are most likely to predict academic success in a student. And so they looked at lots of different things. It was things on this list. It was things that weren't on this list, like how family plays in and background and you know, how you take notes, how you sit at the desk, how you do all of these things, right? So I'd like to kind of ask, sort of throw it over to you. Can anybody guess from this study what the lowest predictive factor was? What factor, what thing that they tested do you think had the least sway in predicting how well a student performed in school or academically?
Can I jump in?
Of course you can.
Use of holidays.
Use of holidays. Good guess, good guess. Anybody else? I'm seeing some very good thinking faces.
Like the least to impact their study skills, right?
Yeah, the least impactful. And actually, I'll give you a hint. It actually is not a thing on this list.
Oh.
Sorry.
That's probably a good thing.
Was it the place they studied?
The place they studied. That's actually a really great guess.
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah,
so that actually, go on.
Sorry.
Sorry, I think we have a delay. Go on, what were you going to say?
Sorry. I was going to say, like, whether they studied, like, in their bedroom or the library. But,
right. So, like, the environment that they're in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's on there.
That's okay. So it was actually really interesting. The lowest predictive factor was actually IQ. So IQ had little to no sway whatsoever in how well these students performed. And that's because IQ doesn't actually measure how intelligent we are, despite popular belief. What it does is it measures how quickly we take in information, but has no bearing at all on how well we use that information once it's already in our heads. So on the flip side then, can anybody guess, and it is something on this list to narrow it down a little bit, can anybody guess what the highest predictive factor was?
Stress.
Yeah, I was gonna say stress.
Sorry.
Stress.
No,
Stress on both sides.
I agree with you.
No, it's a good guess. It's a good guess. It is actually not correct. Although stress is a really interesting one because what we did find, and there's certainly not the only people to find this, is that there's sort of good stress and there's bad stress, and you kind of want to be, you know, in the middle of when you're sort of apathetic versus actually really anxious and stressed out. That's the period where you know that you have to meet a deadline. So stress is definitely, you know, can be a big motivator. But the number one predictive factor for how well a student was going to perform academically was actually belief, or what was coined at the time as grit or hope.
That was going to be my second guess.
It's so easy to say that in retrospect. I don't know. No, so belief, right? So that idea of pushing on in the face of a challenge. So if you think about it, right? You're students here right now. So let's say that you were in class and your teacher you've done a big test and your teacher has graded it. They put it back in front of you. Would it be fair to say that the first thing you're going to look at when that lands on your desk is probably the grade that you've gotten for that test? Is that probably fair? Yeah, right? So let's say that you are a student, you've done really well on your English test, right? And you go, oh, amazing, right? I've done great on my English test. I feel like I can really do English now, right? You're going to keep studying like you can do English, right? Versus maybe you get a poor grade on your math exam and you go, oh, you know what? I guess I'm not that good at math. You kind of get a little bit sort of, you know, not as interested with math, and you suddenly sort of snowball into this idea of, you know, not being a math person anymore. And that's kind of where that comes from. And so what we're trying to do at Elevate is really sort of bridge that gap between sort of where the IQ ends and the belief begins, right? Belief is a learned skill. And so we want to basically give students the tools to be able to take in information, which kind of bridges that IQ gap and sort of says, you know, this is how you're going to get information into your head. And then it's about that belief and believing that they can sort of use that information to do well. Cool. So in terms of what we actually do, these are all of the seminars that we give to the students and really any stakeholder that Elevate works with. So these first 6 that you see, the close reading down to ACE exams, these are the core of what we do. So every seminar outside of that always relates back to content within these first 6. So
You're breaking up a bit, David.
note taking is.
Let's give him a sec. Seems to be frozen in cyberspace. We've lost you, David. Can you see us or hear us? Oh no, we completely lost him. Oh, he stopped sharing. He's here.
That is terrible. I apologize.
That's
Let me just
okay.
reshare my screen.
Technical difficulties happen in this world. Don't worry.
Exactly. Cool. Let me just get this back up. Can you all see my screen again?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Where did you leave off from me? What was the last thing you heard?
You were pretty, it was the beginning of the slide.
Okay, sorry about that.
I think you had just started talking about it.
Sure. So, so close reading is about how to pull evidence from a text. But actually, started from the beginning of the slide. So, basically, the 6 seminars, the close reading down to ACE exams, all the other seminars that we do come off of that and come off of that information. So that's the core of what we do. So, close reading is about pulling evidence from a text and annotating a text. Note-taking is about how to use, say, colors and pictures in your notes to affect, how to use keywords, how to use your own words. It's also about how to use structures. So Cornell notes, you may have heard of that before, graphic organizers, things like that, how to use those effectively. Junior time management is, of course, about time management. So we create a study schedule with the students who are in the room, sort of teach them how to do that in an effective way. We talk about using study groups as well to work more efficiently and how to beat procrastination. Student elevation is all about growth mindset and goal setting. So we talk about SMART goals. We talk about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. We talk about how to build steps up to achieve a goal as well. Memory and mnemonics, that is all about obviously memorizing. So we move away from that idea of rote learning, which is repeating over and over, which is what many of us use, and into this idea of semantic learning. So using images or sort of referencing things that you already know to make some sort of a connection. And ACE exams is all about that time directly before a big sort of state test. So, are you creating an exam planner? How are you using practice tests? How can I speak to my teacher in order to learn what I can be doing better for the test? How can I control my nerves and manage my time within the exam? All of that kind of stuff. Then the AP bootcamp and the summer bridge. So AP is obviously to AP students, and summer bridge is to incoming grade 9. And they are basically 3 or 4 day bootcamp versions of all of that information, but with a little bit more time for the students to sort of feel proficient in the skill and to sort of try it out. And then we also do workshops to faculty, so to teachers as a sort of a professional development workshop. So giving them teacher resources in order to sort of follow up the activities that we are introducing in the classrooms, making sure they understand the skills and how they can implement it in their classes. And we also work with parents as well for the same reasons. So talking more about the things at home, so their study environment, which is what we mentioned before, and things like how to manage their time and their schedule and things like that. So as you can see as well, there's a lot of opportunities to present to a lot of different stakeholders, right? So anyone that comes in, we look at your strengths and we see where you fit best, but everyone has an opportunity to learn all those first 6 seminars. So what would your job be? What a wonderful question. Basically, your job as a presenter would be to deliver the scripted material in a consistent way, utilizing your personality to really connect with the students. And so this is really key. We believe at Elevate that what we do is 50% content, so teaching the actual skill itself, And the other 50% is entertainment and engagement and relatability. And we really fully believe that if we're not doing both of those things, then it's just not the product and not what the school is expecting of us, and what we're not, what we're expecting to give to the school either. So what that means is that, everything that we do is scripted. So you will basically learn the script, and we ask you to learn it, pretty thoroughly, so that you know it really, really well, because we obviously want to make sure that our material is consistent across classrooms. But then where your job comes in is to take that material and say, okay, where can I inject my personality into this? We start every seminar with a game or with a story. So for example, obviously that story has to then link to a point that we're talking about later, but we want you to find ways of making that story really physical, really interactive, really exciting, just really interesting. You can also be that student that goes, yeah, I go to Mercy College, I study X. You can be relatable in that way. A lot of the time we'll be describing points, and we sort of started off with, oh, hey, whoever does this, I know I do this all the time. Who else feels like they right? And then everyone kind of gets on board, and you can then sort of use that as a launch point to go, oh, what is great? You can do this instead. So really relatable. Personality is an incredibly important part of what we do and how we do it. So what would a day in life kind of look like for a presenter? So what you would do is you would arrive at the school 30 minutes prior to the start time of your first session. And the reason for that is, we need to have time to make sure that, you know what rooms you're going to be in, ask any questions to the contact, which is obviously the next step about, what are the students like? Is there anything to know about the students that I may not have been told previously as well? Then what you'll do is you'll go to those rooms and you will deliver the seminars. That is the bulk of your day. If we hire you, we're doing that because you're an amazing public speaker. And so we want you to be spending most of your time doing that. Then we give every student at the end of a session a feedback form. So what you'll then do is you'll collect the feedback forms at the end of however many sessions you've done that day. And we ask you to spend sort of 5 or 10 minutes just counting through those forms and just reporting back on a couple of really basic numbers about that. Excuse me. Then you'll go and speak to the contact, hand them the feedback forms, debrief with them. How was class 6E? Oh, they were wonderful. They were amazing. Whatever it might be, debrief with them, and then you go home, usually sort of late morning, early afternoon, potentially take a nap. You've probably been up since very early. But the bulk of your day really is going into the school and actually speaking and presenting. Cool. So what I would love to do now is actually go through and show you an example of one of the skills that you might be teaching to the students. So this is kind of from our memory seminar, and it's one of sort of the key things that we teach them within that. So the key challenges that we generally find with memory is that, first of all, there's this reliance on rote memorization, like I said before, right? That idea of repeating over and over. The second thing is that there's a poor use of what we call sort of visual spatial memory. So if you just look at words on a page, it's quite difficult just to get all those words that are just typed on a page into your head, right? Using that idea of the space around you and visuals is going to be a much more effective learning sort of memory technique. And also not identifying keywords. A lot of students will try and memorize a whole sentence instead of actually just picking out the key things and the key words that make up and hold all of that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story. And this story is going to seem a little bit strange. It's going to seem a little bit weird. It might seem like you've entered into a bit of a fever dream, but fear not. I promise that it will make sense. And so the idea of this story, lots of weird things are going to happen. And each weird thing that happens is going to take place in a different room or location that you know well. Now, the idea with this is that these rooms or locations go in a sequence. So it wouldn't be, the beach and then my grandma's house and then my bedroom, right? Whatever it might be. It would instead be a sequence. So it could be going into school in the morning, right? You walk into the lobby and maybe you say hi to the person on reception. Then maybe you go and meet your friend in the dining hall. Then you go to your first class of the day, right? So it's a sequence you already know. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is just shut your eyes and just visualize along with the story as we go. Okay. So you go up to your front door. And once you get to your front door, you're about to open it up when you hear an enormous explosion go off. You turn around and a hydrogen bomb has just exploded over the city, right? When I say hydrogen bomb, I mean it for real. It's like a splash has gone off over the city. So you run inside. Once inside, you see a full-sized helicopter sitting in that first room. You're wondering, what is this doing here? So you go closer, but then the helicopter switches on and its blades start to go round and round, and it's starting to take all the paint and the plaster off all the walls. So you're about to run out for safety when you notice that in the cockpit of that helicopter are a load of pink, fluffy bunny rabbits. So you go, well, I've got to save them. So you open up the cockpit of the helicopter and they all jump out and they do flips. And you go, why are they doing flips? And you realize that these are not real bunny rabbits. These are actually all Energizer bunnies. And one by one, each of their batteries fails until you're left with the bunny with the best battery, the one with the lithium battery. Go into the next room and you see all these vines and things going sort of underneath the floorboards, between the cupboards. You look to the end of the room and you see that it is a strawberry plant. So you go up to it and you take a bite out of the strawberry, and oh my goodness, let me tell you, this is the best strawberry you've ever tasted in your entire life. This thing is amazing. So you decide to take a couple off the branch to save it for later, and you walk over to the fridge to put them in the fridge. Open up the door and you see on the top shelf of that fridge is a severed boar's head, and it's dripping blood. It's disgusting. So you shut the door as quick as you can and you run out of the room. Okay, open up your eyes. You're probably like, what am I doing with my Tuesday afternoon?
This is definitely the most interesting recruitment hour we have ever had. So thank you. I'm loving it. You're a great speaker, but I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Well, we'll see if the story works first. If you don't remember anything, then, then maybe not. So I know that story probably seemed very, very, very strange. But what you've actually just done is you've memorized in order the first 5 elements of the periodic table. And you're probably like, no, I haven't. I promise you have. So don't think about the elements. Don't think about the elements. I want you to think about the things that happened in the story. So what is the first thing that happened in the story?
Is it you walked up to your door?
Walked up to your door, and then what happened?
You hear your bottle open and you hear an explosion, so you turn around.
Nice one. Can anyone tell me what kind of explosion it is?
The hydrogen.
Nice one, right. So hydrogen is element number 1.
Yeah.
What is the next thing that happened?
You go into the room and there's a helicopter in the middle of the room.
Nice one. So helicopter in this case is going to represent helium. Helium, right? So helium is the second element. What is the next thing that happened?
You try to save the bunnies. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're okay. It was the Energizer bunnies, and then you mentioned lithium.
Exactly, right? So lithium is the third element, the Energizer bunnies. What is the next thing that happened?
The strawberries, the vines in the room.
Absolutely, right? Strawberry, so berry is beryllium, is the fourth element. And what's the last thing that happened?
The boar's head in the fridge.
Nice one, right? So
Saya.
bore is boron or borium, right? So those are the 5 elements. So normally what would happen is, you might have a list of those in front of you. Maybe you'll remember like a couple of them a day later. With this, if you're sitting in your exam, all you have to do is say, okay, great. Now I'm in my living room. What weird thing happened in my living room? Okay, there was a helicopter in my helium, got it, right? So it links it in that way. And suddenly you don't just remember them, you actually remember them in order, which is really, really cool as well. So how this basically works is you identify a keyword from your notes, you pick a familiar place, and then you combine it into a vivid mental image of some sort, which is really cool. I like that skill. That's good for anyone, I think. It's improved my memory. Cool. So I'd kind of like just to speak for a moment now about why Elevate. So if you're looking to potentially interview as a presenter with us, I would love to sort of tell you why, why I think that Elevate is a great place for you to be, especially while you're studying. So, first of all, we have really flexible hours. So the only restriction that we have on hours is that you need to be free for at least 2 mornings per week, and that's weekdays. And that's up until at least 12. So 2 weekday mornings per week, you are free to work until at least 12 o'clock. So generally what that means, and I'm not in, I think the commute from Mercy, actually I know you have some campuses in Manhattan and stuff as well.
Yeah, we're in Manhattan, Bronx, and Dobbs Ferry, upstate.
Right.
So we're all over.
Nice. Okay. So, obviously just, a lot of people will sort of say, leave about an hour in between where their availability ends and where their first class begins. But obviously, we'll always try and make sure that we're placing you somewhere that you have enough time to travel back for class. But the reason for that is that, the reason for the sort of before 12 is that most of our sessions start, in the morning, and sometimes it can be a bit of a long travel as well. So we just want to make sure that, there is enough work to give you. So some people say, hey, I have class, it finishes at 10 a.m. We go, actually, to be honest, by the time you travel to a school, there isn't going to be that much work to give you. So you've got to have at least 2 mornings when you're free, all the way up until at least 12. By the way, if you have any other time other than that, weekends, evenings, afternoons, other mornings, that's awesome. Just got to have those two initial days. There's also a lot of upskilling opportunities at Elevate. So there's a sort of a couple different versions of this. So first of all, like I mentioned before, there are sort of opportunities to present to different stakeholders. So, we present grades 5 through 12 in all 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as a little bit into New Jersey. We're expanding as a company as well. Our office are sort of looking to be expanding maybe into Chicago soon as well, which is really cool. So loads of sort of different types of people, different backgrounds that you'd be presenting to, different ages as well as the opportunity to potentially present to parents and to teachers as well, which obviously expands that even further. So a lot of really good experience to be had there, but also in terms of leadership opportunities. So we have a structure within Elevate, a team leader structure. So within the team of presenters, there are, I think at the moment, 6 or 7 team leaders and 2 ICs, so second in commands underneath them, and they basically run a team of presenters. And their job is to sort of have check-in calls with their team every week, be the point person, make sure everything's going okay, conduct performance reviews with their team, that kind of thing. And those are presenters that have sort of been with us for a number of months, who have sort of shown and indicated to us that they're people who sort of really contribute to our culture, who really sort of believe in the message and are doing an awesome job for us. And so, as we expand as a team as well, we're going to need more team leaders. And that's a great stepping stone to have a bit of leadership experience as well. But even further than that, whenever we do open up, opportunities, because obviously we have an office team that sort of work full time. And so whenever opportunities in that office open up, we always try and put that opportunity out to our body of presenters. We want them really actively to be interviewing for those roles, and we like to try and hire them when the roles align. And so, that can be a great stepping stone into that. When we do hire for those roles, the most important thing for us is, you've been on our team for, maybe months or a year or so already. What kind of person are you? Do we like working with you? We've already seen what you're like as a worker, and that to us is a lot more important than maybe your age, or and although your studies are definitely really important to us, that and your reputation and what you've sort of shown yourself to be is definitely the thing that we take into account, maybe more than other things as well. So a lot of opportunities for that. And if we're going to go even further than that, we are currently, opening about sort of 2 offices a year across the world, which is really cool. And whenever we open a new office, we need a new general manager to run that office. And again, we always hire that from someone internally, and we do a big sort of company-wide search. Anyone at any age or any level or any amount of time they've been at Elevate can apply. And really anyone can get that role. We've had people who've been a presenter, in certain territories of ours for a couple of weeks, and then they applied, and suddenly they're the new general manager, maybe of our San Francisco office, which is really cool. It's all about who is best for this job. So a lot of opportunities to really advance within quite a fast-growing company. We also have an amazing culture. I love the people I work with so much. They're the absolute best. I miss seeing their faces every day so much. I love my office team as well. They're wonderful. We have a lot of fun, to be honest with you. It's really common that after a seminar, because often you'll go to a school with other presenters and you'll have your own separate classrooms, but you'll often, be there at the same time and often leave at the same time. And it's not uncommon at all for those presenters to be like, oh, we went out and we got chicken and we went on a roller coaster and, hang out after the seminars. We have a really creative team as well, a lot of writers and musicians and actors. And I know that there are a lot of people who sort of come together and collaborated and sort of created new friendships and sort of working relationships from Elevate as well. We have town halls once a quarter, so that's an opportunity for the team to all get together in one place, share sort of how things are going, and then we all sort of hang out, get some drinks and some food together and hang out afterwards. So it's a really, really fun team to be a part of, and actually having a good culture is an incredibly important part of it to us. That's not something that we take for granted. It's something that we actively try and maintain. It's really important to us. Also the pay structure. So let me sort of break down how this pay structure works. You may have sort of seen this $50 an hour figure being put around some places, which is accurate, but I want to just sort of break down how that works. So basically what happens is all the seminars you would do are 45 to 90 minutes long. And we pay for the first seminar of the day a baseline fee of $70, that's 70. And then every seminar after that that takes place on the same day at the same school, we pay a fee of $30 for the seminar. Now, if a seminar runs what we call extra long, which is longer than 60 minutes, then we pay a little more for that. So we pay $30 an hour pro rata for all of the time after the 60-minute mark, just so long as the seminar in its entirety runs at least 75 minutes. But then, of course, we pay retroactively from that 60-minute point. So, for example, if you were to do a seminar lasting 90 minutes, you could add about $15 onto either that 70 or onto that 30. And if you do go to a new school in the same day, then that $70 rate will reset. Additionally, we also pay $20 an hour for any time you spend waiting at a school. So if there's a break between your sessions, as long as that break is at least 30 minutes, we'll pay you $20 an hour for that time, but also retroactively from when that 30 minutes began, just as long as it runs that long. And then we also pay a $15 an hour fee for the amount of time that it takes you to travel to and from the school that we send you to, as well as a reimbursement for any reasonable travel expenses that you incur. I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of travel involved in this job. But that's why we pay you the hourly fees, because we consider that part of your workday. There's also the opportunity to make a difference. You go into these classrooms and you're working with these students and you're giving them these skills. And I'm sure, obviously I'm speaking to a lot of students right now. I'm sure many of you can appreciate that maybe, I hear a lot, it was only until I got to college that I realized how I needed to study and, do all these things. It's quite a common story that we hear. And we work with a lot of students, and a lot of these students go, I really don't necessarily feel like I can pass high school. I don't know if I can do this or whatever. And maybe some of you actually relate to that. And so to have the opportunity to go in, maybe if that was even you, maybe a couple of years ago, and say, actually, look, this is me. I can do it. You can do it as well. These are the skills that I use. This is what works. You then get to see those feedback forms at the end that those students write, and they say, hey, this was really helpful. Like, I feel like maybe I can get through this AP test now. This really helped me, help my anxiety with, this test that I have coming up. Or I had a student, one of my sessions when I was a presenter once, say to me, what I learned from this seminar was that now I realized that maybe I should make the decision about what I go on and study next instead of letting my parents do it. And for some students, that's a huge breakthrough, and so having the opportunity to sort of make that difference and be that relatable person that they can look up to can be a really, really, really rewarding thing to be able to do. So let me run you through now what the application process looks like. So basically, we ask you first of all to send what we call a self-tape of what we call the Stallone story. So basically, one of the seminars, we don't do the seminar in this country anymore, but one of the old ones, they started with a story about Sylvester Stallone and how he became an actor. And so what we'll do is we'll send you a copy of that script. And we're basically going to ask you just to videotape yourself presenting this piece of script, because we want to just see how you are as a speaker. And if you filled out that survey, and I'll post a link again in a moment, I have your email address, so I'll basically be sending it to that email address after the session. After that, if you're successful and we look at that video and go, yep, it's all good, then we'll invite you to do a Zoom Q&A session with me. And that will sort of last, maybe 10, 15 minutes. It's just some sort of normal Q&A questions. And then if you get accepted, that's when you will then sort of sign your contract and be sort of onboarded into the team. And that's when we'll give you the scripts to begin memorizing, and we'll find a training date for you. Training is 2 full days in our office, 9 to 5. We pay $125 a day for training. And then you would really start presenting and going into the schools. So that really is most of the information that I have to share with you. But I would love to throw it over to you and hear any questions that you might have for me.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, I mean, I know for myself, I would never have considered myself a good public speaker when, just in the beginning. So, um, how much development is involved in your training? And are you seeing people who are getting hired that are not perfect from the start and getting better as they go? So along those lines.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the best way to answer that is to say this, which is, we do definitely want to make sure that anybody, that we're bringing into the team already has a good baseline skill of public speaking. But what I will also say is that, let's define what public speaking is, because there's a lot of different versions of it. It's quite common that I have someone come in and interview with me who says, hey, I've done a lot of debate. I've been up on stages, and they go and they present. And are they a very good public speaker? Absolutely, 100%. But are they necessarily the brand of public speaking that we're looking for? Sometimes, but sometimes not. Often we have people that go in and are very sort of formal in the way that they're speaking. And actually, that's not what we want. We want someone who goes into the room and lights it up with their energy, is really loud, is really energetic, is able to really relate to these students. And so it's more about sort of that confidence of being able to really enter the room and own that room and be loud and that kind of stuff, than it is about sort of maybe being the most sort of technically good public speaker there is, although that does also come into it. But I'd say to that end, if I see someone who comes in and interviews with me, what I always try and do is, we don't want to be having a situation where we have someone really trying to upskill them with, doing the basics of public speaking during training, because we just simply don't have the time for that. But what I do look for is the kind of person where I go, how are you doing this script? Are you sort of speaking in a really genuine way? Are you able to project your voice and be loud and be heard in a classroom where maybe, sometimes it's easy to be heard and sometimes not? If I'm looking at those, is your body language open? That kind of stuff. And if I can sort of look at those things and I can say, yeah, if we bring you in for training and you learn the scripts, there's definitely a couple of sort of simple things that we can do just to kind of, make that story really shine. That's what we're looking for. So I think hopefully that answers your question, but really what we're looking for is sort of that raw ability to just be genuine and be energetic and light up the room. And generally speaking, the people who are able to do that and still stay on message with what they're speaking about and stay on script, those are usually the people that are making the best presenters that we hire.
Great answer. Thank you.
Anytime. Any other questions?
So I was just wondering, well, at the schools, how big would the people we would be presenting to be? Like, how big would the groups be?
Yeah, so generally speaking, you're actually going to go into just a classroom setting. So, if you imagine it's 20, 30 students, so often it'll be that you'll walk into the classroom and, I don't know, Mr. Smith is finishing his lesson on English, and you'll sort of creep in the back and hook up your laptop and everything, and introduce, go, oh, we have a guest speaker. Zaya today is going to speak about how to manage your time, and then they'll all turn to you, and you'll have the focus and the attention. But it's very much, usually it's that classroom setting.
So it would be an interactive experience?
Very, very much so. So yeah, it's really, really important that it's interactive. So, we want to be, basically every student will have a workbook, and the seminar that you give follows along with that workbook. So, maybe we're doing note taking, and we'll start off by going, okay, here are the 6 biggest mistakes that most students make when taking notes. The first thing you're going to write in, the first biggest mistake is not taking notes or not using keywords, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll go through and be like, cool, tip number 1 is going to be take notes, and then they'll sort of fill in these gaps in the pack as you go, and there'll be little activities that you'll guide them along. But also, when you're giving the seminar itself, I'm trying to think of an example right now, where, you'll be talking about, say, managing, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, for example, so, you'll be doing, I think it's in the time management, one of the workshops, we talk about how, lying down while trying to study or being on your bed while trying to study is often not very good. So you might start that off by going, who here has ever lay down on their bed while they're trying to study, and the next thing you're drifting to sleep, and then you wake up in the middle of the night, who's ever done that? And then the students might put up their hands, maybe they'll, so it's sort of interactive in that way, where you're sort of getting their feedback, and then you're working from that feedback to sort of create that rapport, which then sort of has them sort of buy into that message that you're giving them a little bit stronger. So yeah, being interactive with this and getting, we get volunteers up to help aid with stories. When we're talking about pulling evidence from a text, we have a whole courtroom story. So you'll get up the lawyer and you'll get up the judge, and you sort of like play it out and role play it. And then of course it comes to the thing of like, well, why can't you say that he's guilty? Oh, well, you need evidence. Of course you need evidence, right? And so it has that whole, so yeah, really, really interactive.
Thank you.
Anytime.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
So with the training, could you go a little bit more into detail on how you actually train the presenters? I know you said it was 2 days, but I would like to know what the training actually consists of.
Yeah, absolutely. So what will happen is prior to that, you'll be given the scripts. So the first step even before training is learning the scripts. We need you to come into training with the scripts like down, ready to go.
Okay.
And I won't lie to you, that can sometimes be a bit of a long, a difficult learning curve, learning process. And so we guide you with that as best we can. We give you calls weekly, sort of check in where you're at. Hey, struggling. Here's what you can sort of try to do to structure this differently, because it is a lot of information to fit in your head. But once you kind of get the hang of it, it's kind of all good to go. So once you've got that, that's when we can kind of bring you into training. So you would start off by learning 2 scripts. So each day focuses on a different script. And really, I guess the theory behind it is, now that you know the content and the content is like solidly locked in your head, you've got it. Now we can focus on what you do when you are standing up in front of everybody actually presenting. So maybe there's a story in one of the scripts and you get into the story. So what we'll do is you'll be in a room with a bunch of other presenters. So you'll do the first part, then someone else will do the same part, and then third person will do the same part, just to go around. We'll give notes as we go. So then it might be, hey, let's try this story in this way. What if you move around the room more? We need you to be louder. Let's try, we'll talk about body language. So then it really comes to, how are you presenting this? How can we make this the most fun and engaging workshop that it possibly can? Now that all the content, that's already done. We've got that. Let's just focus on you being an awesome presenter. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yes, definitely. It's like more like a hands-on, like, okay, kind of collaborative thing from what I'm understanding.
Yeah. Definitely, and you see everyone else present as well, which is really fun. You kind of get ideas from other people as well about, hey, how are you telling this story? What are you doing? Someone else might be leaping around the room. Someone else might do like a funny voice, and you can kind of get ideas kind of as you go as well, which can be really fun.
Awesome. Okay, and then the second question. So is there a follow-up process? So when you go to the schools, because you mentioned earlier, and I've seen it before, where you kind of like, in some cases, you change a student's life, and what if they want to follow up with you, or in some aspects, how do you handle that when it comes to the students?
Yeah, really good question. And that is definitely sort of one of the elements of the job is, I know a lot of people wanting to go into sort of education, they want that sort of regular follow-up and that one-on-one. And unfortunately, that just sort of isn't something that we're able to offer. The idea is we go into these classes, and you may revisit a class and do sort of another seminar for them down the line, but it's pretty uncommon for one presenter to do all of a class's seminars, right? So you're sort of moving around quite a lot each day. So if a student wants to follow up, that's not so much through you as a presenter or through us. That's where we sort of throw it over to our program managers, and what they do is they work with the teachers at the school both before and after your sessions to give them what we call TRKs, so teacher resource kits, which is what I was talking about before. So, hey, here are the follow-up activities that we suggest. How are you following up with the students? And then if those teachers have any questions about anything, then they can sort of come back to the program managers, and we can work with them like that. So what your job is to sort of get the students excited and be that initial messaging. And then we work with the school and the teachers to then implement that further.
Okay, yeah. I was just wondering, because I know there's some instances, I was that student where I would go up to a presenter and be like, if I could get some tips or something. So that's really great that there is some sort of like follow-up process. That's really awesome. Thank you.
Sure. No, of course. Any other questions at all? While we think, if there are no other questions, just real quick, I'm just going to post the link to the survey in here again. So if you didn't fill out that welcome survey before, just do it now. If anybody has any other questions.
I think, Natasha, you recently joined. So if you want to receive information on the job and how to apply, and the script, I believe, you're going to want to fill out that survey that David just posted in the chat.
Okay.
And thank you for joining.
Nice to see another face.
So David, did you start as a presenter? Because you're quite good at it.
Yeah, no. So actually, almost everybody at the company, from our general manager, started off as a presenter. So almost everyone at every level of the company was at some point a presenter. A couple of people not, but most of the people, certainly in New York, who were never presenters were teachers. So yeah, everyone is, myself included. Yeah, I was a presenter from end of 2017 through to when I started this job, which was April 2019. So yeah, I went through, did the whole thing.
Cool.
It's an awesome place to be.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. You've almost converted me to apply, but I have to, that's I like my job.
We are welcome.
I'm going to stop recording. I probably should have stopped recording a minute ago.
That's okay.
So